And hi, everybody. How are you today? It's Trish Carr. We're here with another episode of Be Real, Get Real with Women's Prosperity Network. And this show is all about being real and being yourself. You know, in today's comparison culture, so many of us are walking around with everything's great, my life is good. And we all look and we go, how come my life isn't that great? How come I have ups and downs? It seems like other people just have the perfect life. Well, I have a little bit of a roller coaster in mine. Well, don't we know that the fact is that we all have a little bit of a roller coaster? And here's the thing when it comes to business, people do business with people, they don't do business with business, right? It's the people that we work with. And those relationships and knowing the people and knowing who they really are goes to creating an affinity, which creates business. So this show is all about being real because when you're real and you give yourself the opportunity to do that in front of other people, it gives them that same opportunity. So today I'm going to be talking about resilience. Is there anybody here who wouldn't like to have a little bit more of that? I know I would. Resilience is the thing that makes us pick ourselves up when things go wrong, that pick ourselves up when things don't go the way we wanted to. It's that little roller coaster of life that when we're on the way down, we can make ourselves come back up. And today's guest is going to share all about her journey. So, Munira Zahabi is the niche navigator. She is a speaker, an influencer, and an entrepreneur from Chicago, the big city. Through her business, she has influenced many people to navigate their niche. She's focused on the riches are in the niches, or the riches are in the niches. And that concept helps businesses reach their goals. Depending on the business goals, podcasting could fit very well in with the overall business purpose, enabling businesspreneurs to spread the word about why you do what you do in an engaging and interesting way. And it's an effective way to narrow your niche and your market and resonate with those people. So that's Munira's mission. She's on a mission to integrate the concept of nicheology, businessology, and I love this one, confidenceology. You'll hear all about Munira this morning. And welcome, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings from Chicagoland. Thank you, Trish. Thank you for having me.
Greetings from Chicagoland. So, oh my gosh, Munira, it's my pleasure to have you here. You know, you and I have spoken before, and you've been on another show that I do. And your story is so compelling. And I talk about the roller coaster of life. Oh my goodness, what a roller coaster for you. And I don't even know where to start. That's where
Let's
but
start
you're
at the
really high
beginning.
right now. Things are good for you.
Things are good. It's
You're
kind of
at the top of the roller coaster.
right. It's a stagnant period right now because if something isn't happening, then something isn't right in my life. And
Yeah.
I heard one of the coaches tell us that you're in vibration all the time. And, I'm not a physicist, but you have to be moving all the time. And that's what my life has been all about. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've had, how many grandchildren do you have? 11 and a half?
11 and a half. The 12th one is arriving on the first week of September.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. And
Thank
I
you.
know you're so proud of your kids and your grandkids, and you're lucky enough to have some of them around you, which is great. I know you're babysitting today, as a matter of fact.
I am. My almost 2 year old granddaughter who thinks she's 22.
Really? She's already in that space. Okay,
Oh,
lucky you. You have a lot ahead of you with her, don't you?
yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well, let's start pre-COVID because just before COVID, you had a really personal tragedy, and then we went into COVID. So share a little bit about what that was like for you and what happened.
So in 2018, my husband was what started out as a routine check was we were told to go find a new nephrologist and go find a go see him for second opinion. By the time we got to the nephrologist was 8 months down the road, and we the first or second meeting we were looking at dialysis options. And in my head, I'm thinking this cannot be happening. I'm just going to give him my kidney, but that doesn't work, right? It doesn't.
No.
What we plan out doesn't work. And in January of 2019, he started his dialysis, and his health deteriorated from there because in his head was I'm not good for anybody, so I'm now a lump and I'm not doing good, so I'm just going to give up. And that's what he did. He actually gave up. So within a year, less than a year, he just passed away because his condition got really worse.
Did he stop doing dialysis?
No, he was doing dialysis, but he didn't have just diabetic and issues. He also had GI issues. He had broken his knee at one point, but that made it very difficult. He was in the HVAC business, so he could have climbed on the roofs where he needed to be. So it just his whole world as he knew it fell apart. And I feel that he gave up. He just gave up because he thought he was a burden on me. And, just one thing led to another. And then there could be something that I don't know what exactly, but I have a feeling that his diabetic issues were not controlled very well by the
Mm.
physician because at one point he was being given 45 units of insulin with his meals. But thank God for the Abbott Libre, the button that you just install in your arm and then you can check your sugars. He wouldn't need 34, 45 units. He would need only 4 units. So I don't know if all of that messed him up or not, but it's been 2.5 years and I often think about it, but it is what it is and you just have to go with it. So that's one resilience because as soon as he passed away, I had to take care of all of the bills, all of the tax season was coming up, so I had to take care of all of that. I had to go, work out my insurance stuff because for us, women have to go into seclusion where they are not being seen by anybody and they are just in the four corners of their home and they have to deal with the grief for 4.5 months. And this is something that is,
All by themselves?
well, you have family, you can see family and you can, but you have to, it's a compulsion thing. It's something that's written in the Quran that you have to go through this. Every woman does have to go through this. But if you have family and friends come and visit you, then it's okay. But you are secluded in the sense that you don't see, men don't see you, right? So you have to keep away from all of that. And so that was hard. And as soon as I entered, we were hearing that China had this virus and all of that. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I enter seclusion, like the world shuts down.
The world was in seclusion at the same time.
So in a way, it was okay because it made it easier, but it wasn't because you can't um, do anything. So I like I couldn't do anything because no friends could come see me.
Right.
My family couldn't come. My kids would come. They would come and visit me. My grandkids would show up, and but that it was the hardest 4.5 months of my seclusion period, and I felt like there was nobody there. I felt very lonely. You couldn't talk to your friends. You couldn't have a heart to heart without somebody listening because even on Zoom there was everybody was right there, and so everybody was listening. So that was pretty hard. um, but I then had to sit down. Years ago I had made this my years ago I had made up my mind that whatever happens to me, I'm going to live for my kids. So at this time, in fast forward almost 37 years, I'm thinking I have to live. I can't just wither and die. I'm not going to do that. So then I started devouring materials and classes and all of that stuff, reading my books and everything. So that kept me alive because it gave me so many ideas. And when I emerged from that, even though COVID wasn't over, I started my show right away. I started, my ideas started bursting forth, and I created a lot of things. You get creative, right? Adversity allows you to become creative. So that happens too. And I'm here in front of you 2.5 years, 2.5 years later, trying to figure out what next. What should I do next, right? So it's not easy. You can laugh about it, but people always think that you're going to be okay. But like somebody else told me, it's like you've been shot in the heart, and there's a hole there that you'll never be able to bury, but you have a scar to prove it. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure your children are a real support for you, even though they're not all with you. I know you have one child there with you. Who's with you? Your son?
my son lives 20 minutes down the street.
Yeah, that's
Then my
great.
daughter lives an hour away. So those are
Oh,
the closest ones. And then I have a daughter in California, and then I have a daughter in Toronto, Canada, and then I have a stepson in Minnesota.
oh, good. You can visit lots of different places
Oh yeah,
then.
have a weekend trip anywhere I want.
Yeah. So do you think, so what do you think it was that, going through that tough period, what was it that motivated you, moved you to just stand up and say, I'm moving on? Is it that you're so a lifelong learner and you just delved into more self-development and more learning?
I I consider myself a student of life for life because the lessons I've learned are not from school or from any books. They've been actually handed to me, and I've gone through a lot of things in my life. But what made me I had a good heart to heart talk after I got out of my seclusion, went to my husband's grave, and I said, you were supposed to be there for me, but you're gone. So I have to move on, otherwise I'm going to wither away. So I'm going to move on. It's not like I'm leaving you behind, but you left me, so I have to keep going. And the fact is, I joined a few widow groups on Facebook thinking I'm going to get some closure maybe. And what I instead found was that there was one woman who for 13 years had not even touched her husband's items. She would dust around
Wow.
them, yeah, for 13 years. And she's like, I kept everything the way it is, and I feel his presence. And I'm like, how can you live in the past? You need to move on. And then I talked to her, and she was like, you wouldn't understand. And I was like, okay, if you think so, I don't. But these are women, most of them were there, they were like the crabs in the bucket. Every
Yeah.
time somebody tried to jump out, they would pull them back. There were other women, younger women, who had lost their spouses, and they were trying to find love in another place, or they were dating somebody. And these women would just get back to, what is your problem? Why can't you just live a widow life? Why do you have to go and find some happiness and all that? And as I saw these groups, I mean, some ladies were supportive and they were just okay, but some people just, it broke my heart to see them in that state, and you couldn't do anything with them because they were so jam packed and so foundational. They were just, I think, cemented in their thought process is the
Yeah.
word. So the thing is, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I have to move on. So i I then read a study about a man who had done studies on 3-year-olds. And what he said was 3-year-olds laugh 50 to 67% of the time during the day. Any adult between 50 and 67-year-old does not laugh even 3 times a day.
What?
So happiness has to come from within. So one thing I had to do was be happy and just laugh and be happy. But the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome was forget what everybody said to me. I am at this point in my life. I'm just going to forgive the past and move on because I can't keep carrying burdens because it wears you out. It literally wears you out. And I saw that with my husbands, both my husbands. They always had somebody to blame. Somebody said something, so they wouldn't go forward. And because somebody said something, I'm just going to stand here and just stand here. And I'm like, no, you have to go forward. Just forget it. There are times when people say something to us, and in the moment of whatever they said something to us, but we never have to hold on to them because you know what? The person telling us something, they move on. They don't even know they've said something, but we hold that back, so, hold it in our heart so much that we don't move forward from there. And then we have all these bad thoughts about this person and we never forgive them. We don't move on. And that is a burden that we have to carry through life. And that really hurts.
Yeah, well, they're running around having a good time. They said something to you that upset you. You're holding the grudge and you're the one who's not happy when it's them who caused it. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Both your husbands were like that. Well, your first marriage was arranged, right?
I was married at 15. Yes, he was 13 years older than me. Never treated
Mm.
me as a wife, always treated me as a child. My job in that marriage was to produce a son. And I had a son after three daughters.
Oh my goodness.
So when my third daughter was born, my sisters-in-law just threw me out of the house. They would not. I came home with the baby, and they would not open the door. They
When
would
you
not
came
let
home with your third daughter?
Yeah, they would not open the door. And then we had to have a pact. We had a meeting and we had a pact that we didn't. She was born in December, just after Christmas. And by April, I was to find a place and move out because I was no longer needed. And the only thing I did was produce kids like a rabbit because my kids every 2 years I would have a child. But I had three girls. So I moved into a building that was a new building. It was a new construction, but it was not completed. So when it rained, the rain would be, even though we had a roof, it would rain in our house. And when it rained and if we touched the wall, the electricity was done in such a poor manner that we would get electric shock.
It's like Stranger Things.
Right.
Oh my
But
God.
in United States or any Western country, you wouldn't have a permit to live in an unfinished building. But this man needed the money to complete the building, so he allowed us to live in there. So there was
And
my family
where were you living then?
in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania,
Yeah, in Tanzania. And you
and
were in your early 20s, Munira?
when I had my son, I was 24.
Wow.
So yeah, I was a mom at 24.
A mom of four at 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. And then, so that husband also passed away, right?
Yes, he had his leg amputated with diabetes, and
Isn't it interesting how they both had that same thing?
right. And if I had this, one thing I tell women, if you're looking for love later in life, please make sure that you have a clean bill of health. Don't look for the bank account. I didn't look for that, but look for because you know what you're getting yourself into. But also somebody who has conscientious about their health. Somebody who doesn't take care of themselves will not take care of you.
Yeah, but here you are. So, how old were you when your husband died, the first husband?
Oh, that was in 2014. We were divorced,
Oh, okay.
so
You were
I
divorced.
wasn't.
Oh, you were divorced. You were
Yeah,
divorced.
I was
How'd you
divorced.
get divorced? I'm surprised your religion allowed that.
No, so Islam is not very rigid on divorce. If it doesn't work out, yes. So there are rules, right? People just think that it's no a no, but it is part of, if it doesn't work, if you have tonsils that don't work, you got to take them out, just like that,
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's a nice thing to be able to do.
Right. So I was able to do that because it just got to a point where we were just not compatible. And I always thought that once my kids were in college and they were done, I would leave. But my son was 10 when he said, "You're going to die if you stay here. You need to leave." I
Your
mean, so
10-year-old said that to you?
yeah, so the kids are always watching. You have to remember that, and they know what's happening every time there's a fight or you have a discussion. They already know that. So we try to hide it from them. It doesn't work. And
Mm-mm.
when he said that to me, I was very, very surprised of the fact that they were so cognizant of the fact. And so I realized that I need to leave. Otherwise, I had promised myself years ago that I was going to live for my kids. And if I die or something happens to me here, then what's going to happen to them?
Mm.
So then I left for them. So then I had to go through the divorce proceedings. And then I was alone for 12 years. And then I got married to my second husband. But the thing is, one, they carry grudge, and two, they don't take care of themselves. And we, as in anger to the world, we say we do that. We tend to do that. We say we're not going to take care of ourselves. Well, it doesn't help you. So self-care is very, very important. You have to take care of yourself. So part of being resilient is what's in it for you. And you have to be very selfish and ask what's in it for you.
And be selfish and ask for what you want.
Right. So you have to ask yourself. We usually we hear coaches talk about people are going to ask, if they come to our programs, they're going to ask us, what is it for me? But no, this is a conversation between yourself, because you have to converse and you have to make sure that you know what you want. And you
Eh,
girls, the WPN ladies are just putting that in my head right now. I mean, you must have been doing it, but I wasn't listening, wasn't tuned in, if you will. But now I'm tuned in and I'm like, I know what I want, and I'm just going to put it together and get what I want. So self care is important. It's not only, getting your nails done or getting a massage or get a facial done or something like that, but it is just for you. So the men in my life didn't think about that. They were just there for everybody else, for their work. My first husband was a jeweler and a watch repairer. So he was there for all his customers. My second husband was an HV guy, and all he did was take care of his customers because he was worried about the inventory that would spoil in the refrigerators if he wasn't showing up. But what about you? Who's taking care of you? And it
What
was
a great message. What a great message, Munira, really. And we've only scratched the surface of the things you've experienced in your life. I mean, you were 30 years old, you moved to the United States. Did the kids come with you when you moved?
Oh, yes, I brought them.
Yeah, 4 children with you when you moved to the United States at 30 years old. And you've been through so much, and somehow, some way, you're still standing because you take care of yourself, because you move on, because you don't hold grudges, because you know how important it is to be light in life. I love that statistic about 3-year-olds are laughing 50 to 67% of the day, and most adults, 50 or older, laugh less than 3 times. I wonder what the gradation is on that. Like, when do you stop laughing? But that's really great advice right there. Do you know, when do you stop? Like when you're in your 30s, does that start to happen?
I think we have an ego, and we are taught at, I think, about 20 to be serious, and
Yeah, you're at work
and
now.
you have to know, you act your age, and like I have workers in my I work right now, and I'm in the clinic. I have a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old kids who are learning how to be MAs, and we're teaching them, and their goal in life is to become something in medical field. So they will come here and they giggle all the time, and sometimes I just look at them. And then one time I was just so busy with something, and I just said, like, keep it down, guys. And they were like, what, you want us to stop laughing? I said, I don't want you to stop laughing, I just want you to keep it down. You're bothering me. So, there are days when you don't want to be hearing a lot of laughter. But that's when I started thinking about the statistics, is that these kids, even at 22, if I had told them act your age and be serious, they would stop laughing, and then they would go into this mode where, oh, we only have to laugh, it's only an etiquette thing. It's not. Just laugh, man, for God's sake. The Somebody told me a long time ago, if you can laugh at yourself, it's the best kind of laughter, because you make all the mistakes. And I could write a book on all the blunders I made when I came to United States, and what I have done, right? So many blunders I have done. But when you sit back and you listen and you talk about it with your friend and you say, you remember that time what happened, and you laugh about it, that's
Yeah.
the time when you need to, you figure out how much you've grown.
Yeah, absolutely. Munir is a hobby. You amaze me every time we talk. You really do. Look at you laughing. I love that.
You
And
have
now
to.
you have to. And your clients get to work with you and you help them find where they should be navigating their businesses and who the right customer is for them. And when you know who it is you're speaking to, it makes it so much easier to create your messaging, so much easier. And now you're showing people how to do podcasts.
Yes, that's part of the program. So, because everybody has a message, everybody has a story, they got to tell it. Because, like you said, how do people don't do businesses with businesses, they do businesses with people. And if you like a person, then you always want to go back to that person. So, if they know this person and if they have a story, then you can say, remember you talked about this, and that resonated me with me because my story now works along the same time. I went to a convention about 6 years ago, and this guy was talking about how his father had a car, and he would just cram everybody in the early 40s in the car, and they would just, you know, uh, they would. He would take them fishing and stuff like that. And 40s wasn't like you had internet and all that, so it was easy. They would go fishing, they would go in the park. And then his father got sick, but he had to sell his car because he wanted the kids to go to school. And then he said, at one point, I started making money and I bought my father a car. And he spoke about that whole length of time. And it was a 40-minute solid time where he literally spoke about his father, and finally he died. But there was not one eye in the audience that was dry. Everybody was crying.
Yeah.
So very moving, right? So how do you? Because I started thinking about how the hardships my parents went through, and so we always resonate with people's stories. And my life, I can tell you right now, and there is nobody on earth who has lived my life or can live my life, because this was just dealt. This story was written only for me.
Right.
So how I deal with it is going to be the next step, because if you don't deal with it, you become paralyzed, you become stagnant, and then you just wilt away and die.
Well, you are quite the resilient woman, and I admire you so much for being that. You just, how you stay in a positive mindset that it's going to work out, and you take the steps to make it happen. Munira Zahabi, you are truly someone who is real and who is an inspiration to all of us. So
Thank you.
oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today
Can
and
I
for
say one more
sharing your
thing?
story. Yes, yes.
One thing I realized later in life was that God never wants bad things to happen to you. So it's always going to right itself. Like we talk about the stock market writing itself. So it's going to right itself, but they're just hurdles that we have to overcome. And once we learn that, once we accept that, all the hurdles become easier to accept. At that particular time, we want to cry, we want to scream, we blame God for everything. But I know for sure that he's got something better on the other side. And
Wow. Great advice, Munira. Great advice. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you all for joining us today. Whether you're watching live or you're watching on a replay, I'm glad you took the time. I hope you are too, because Munira is totally inspiring. You know, that roller coaster of life, she's good at getting back up. And we could all use a little more of that. Munira Zahabi, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope you too can be real, get real. And when you do, you achieve real results. Bye-bye, everybody.
you, bye.